Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be bringing you my final mock draft for the New Orleans Saints 2023 NFL Draft, Mock Draft 3.0. I've done a couple of mock drafts that I've presented on my channel. In the first one, I stayed put at the first pick. I moved down with the second pick about 4 spots. I ended up drafting 2 running backs. I didn't get a linebacker, didn't get a DB. It was interesting. It was fun. In my second mock draft, I decided to make a big move up in the first round. Ended up trading back a couple of spots after that. Ended up trading back into the second round later on. So a few moves there. Kind of wanted to see what would happen if I traded up in the first round. I think that's what the Saints will actually do. That was mock 2.0. And this one is mock 3.0. So the Saints love to trade up, and that's what they're going to do. And so I'm going to present my 3.0 mock draft right now, right at the beginning of this video. And then later on, I'll present a few more scenarios and give you my final thoughts on the draft. But in this scenario, my final mock, I've decided, I've looked at the draft, I've looked at the picks that we have, and that's them. And I I looked at the way the players are expected to fall in the draft. I look at the Saints' needs, and I just come to the conclusion we don't have enough picks. Now, typically the Saints usually take 5 or 6 players. You know, if we stay put and get all 8 players, it'll be a huge haul for the Saints as far as the draft goes. But I don't think we're rebuilding this year, but I also don't think if we package everything and get 2 or 3 really good guys that we're going to be where we need to be to get to the promised land, right? I think we need to put in as many young bodies as possible on this roster. We have one of the oldest rosters, if not the oldest roster in the league. And we also have 29 players that only have 1 year left on their contract. I just think that this is a good draft, albeit it's an average draft as far as talent goes. That there's enough needs for the Saints that we really do need to consider gathering some extra picks. Now, if the Saints pick 8 players, great. I think they're doing great. Personally, me, I've done about 50 of these mock drafts now. And I've come up with a bunch of great scenarios. And this mock 3 is going to be one of those scenarios. I'm only making one move, but it's a blockbuster move. And it involves Sean Payton's Denver Broncos. I asked Denver, I'm looking at the draft and I'm thinking, man, if we had an extra second round pick, that would be great. If we had a couple of third round picks or a couple of fourth round picks, I would be really happy. I think that's where we can fill most of our needs with some pretty talented players, somewhere in the third and fourth round. Second, third, fourth round. You know, and if you pick up extra late round picks, that's extra bodies. That way you can take a chance on a quarterback or take a chance on another running back or another defensive end or whatever it is. Extra bodies, right? I really think that anywhere between 8 and 12 players is what the Saints should be taking in on this haul. Kind of like rebuilding by retooling your roster, but you're not really rebuilding because you're pretty average right now. So the draft trade with the Broncos, I want their 2 third-round picks. They have pick 67 and pick 68. I would really love that. We have a third-round pick 71. I would really love to add 2 more third-round picks. So I try to deal with them. If I give them a second-round pick next year, they're willing to give me their 2/3 this year. and they're going to throw in a fifth. So for my second round pick next year, they'll give me their 2/3 and a fifth. And then if I give them my third round pick, 71 overall, they're willing to give me a fourth round pick this year, a fourth round pick next year, and a sixth round pick. They're willing to do that, and I'm willing to put it all together in one trade. And this is it. Now, if this would actually happen, I don't know. I've got the draft set on standard trades, and if the computer agrees, they agree. And this is the trade. I'm sending Denver my second round pick next year and my third round pick this year, 71 overall. And in return, I get 2 third round picks, 67 and 68 overall, 2 fourth round picks, pick 108 this year, and a fourth round pick next year. And I'm also getting their fifth round pick, 139, and their sixth round pick, 195. That's the trade, and here's how the Saints picks look now. This trade happens before the draft even starts. Now I have 12 picks, and like I say, anywhere between 8 to 12 selections I'd be really happy with. You can use these extra picks to move up at certain points in the draft. I didn't feel a need to move up at any point. This particular draft fell really well for me, and I ended up keeping all 12 picks. I know it's crazy. It's a scenario. It could happen. I'm going to do a video later on predicting what I think the Saints will actually do and the players I think they are targeting. But in this video, Saints Mock Draft 2.0 for the year 2023. Let's get started. Those are our picks. We're tempted to move up in the first round, but we let the draft fall. There's a handful of players I really like at pick 29, but I go ahead and once again pull the trigger with pick 29 in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. I select defensive tackle Calijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh. Anywhere along the defensive line I'd be happy with in the first round. I keep coming back to Kancey. You know, there was in my second mock, I thought you'd have to trade up to get him. But in the last week and a half, it seems like he's fallen back towards the bottom of the first round again. He's been there half the times in the last probably 5 or 10 simulations I've done. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. I'm taking him. I don't think the Saints actually would. They're crazy. That's my pick. Calijah Kancey with pick 29. Our next pick is in the second round, pick 40. The board falls great. We stay put. And with the 40th pick in the second round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select defensive end Keion White out of Georgia Tech. This is a steal in the second round for the Saints. And we have addressed the defensive line twice. All right, I'm happy. I'm happy, and now the blockbuster trade starts to give me, you know, my dividends, my paid dues. 2 third rounders, 2 fourth rounders, 3 fifth rounders. Yeah, we're going to get a couple of good players out of this. I focus on 2 third round picks because I have my heart set on this next pick for the Saints. Perfect fit. Pick 67 in the third round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The Saints select running back Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. There's a way in this draft that you can acquire some pretty good players in the third and fourth round. If you don't focus on running back, you try to get a running back later on, I think you're good because you're ultimately picking your third back right now. And the depth in this draft is great. But every time I look at Tyjae Spears and I think about him in this offense, I think this is a third rounder that is going to work. This is going to stick. We have options with Kamara if we draft this guy. I just keep coming back to wanting Spears in the third round. Now, if you do that, you're going to pass on maybe a good guard falling to you. Another really good defensive tackle is there. That's when the wide receivers start coming off the board, and really good tight ends are still there. You know, if you get a halfback there, if you get Tyjae Spears there, you're not going to be able to draft a linebacker that might have fell into the third round. So, you know, there's so much depth at running back. You can get a good one later on. Tyjae Spears with the Saints just makes so much sense to me. And I have to make that move. And with the very next pick 68 in the third round, I have the option now to entertain one of those other choices and still get my man at running back. And I go ahead and decide to draft tight end Tucker Kraft out of San Diego State. Tucker seems to be a well-rounded guy. He's going, in my opinion, he's going to take Adam Troutman's place. We got Troutman in the third round 4 years ago. Now we're getting Tucker Kraft. In reality, I think the Saints would be more interested in getting a proven receiving tight end, even though we have Juwan Johnson. I think that's the way the Saints roll. I don't think they focus on the well-rounded tight end as much as I would like to, especially in this draft. I expect the Saints to pick a pass catcher at tight end. But this is my pick, and now we have 4 picks in the first three rounds, and it looks pretty good to me. Defensive line, 2 offensive players. All right, now we're going to have to start focusing on other things. Linebacker, offensive guard, wide receiver. These are the other needs. And I know the Saints are eventually going to get a DB at some point. Probably really early. Not sure if that's what I'm going to do. My 2 fourth-round picks come up, and I am ecstatic because with pick 108 in the 4th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select wide receiver A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. He's one of my favorite receivers in the draft. And, I love the depth at wide receiver. I love the big bodies that are there. There's a variety. And, I mean, you can get some really good ones in the 3rd round and 4th round. A.T. Perry's one of those guys. Now, I've got a list of about 6 of them that I really want, including Jonathan Mingo, including Rashee Rice. I don't know how far Cedric Tillman falls. I love Xavier Hutchinson. Lots of good wide receivers I would take. A.T. Perry's a great pick. And then with pick 115 in the 4th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select defensive tackle Zach Pickens out of South Carolina. We got our pass rushing defensive tackle in Kancey. We've got some pass rush edge action with Keon White. And now we get another big body to put in the middle of the line with Zach Pickens. Don't know if he can be a true nose. I think maybe we can flip-flop him. He can be a rotational guy. We need bodies at defensive tackle. And I had my eyes on him, or perhaps Ojimo from Texas was a good fit there. It depends on how far Gervon Dexter falls, if I would consider him. But Zach Pickens was the man on the board there. All right, there you go. That's the first 6 picks, and we've got 3 defensive linemen and 3 offensive players. I'm pretty stoked. Don't know when I'm going to be able to dress offensive line at this point, or linebacker. That's what I'm really focusing on now. The 5th round for me comes with pick 139 in the 5th round. The Saints select defensive end Isaiah McGuire out of Missouri. I personally have a late 3rd, 4th round grade on McGuire, and he's too good to pass up right here at the 5th pick, the 5th round pick. I mean, Now we've got 4 defensive linemen. He's too good to pass up right here. You know, you hope Keon White works out. Hell, for all I know, we just drafted our 4 starting defensive linemen for the next half a decade. Elijah Cansey, Zach Pickens in the middle, Isaiah McGuire, Keon White at the edge. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Some needs might not be getting met if I pick 4 defensive linemen, but that is the biggest need for the Saints. And that's why I think having extra picks is a great idea for this draft. You know, you're going to miss on some of these players. You want to make sure you fill your roster. With pick 146 in the 5th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints make an interesting selection that goes against their measurables. He's way too good of a player, in my opinion, to pass up, and I think this is a home run. Linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati. Wow. Look at that. That is one hell of a draft class. I'm excited at this point. I think Dorian Williams would fit pretty quickly into this football team, but you might have to spend a 4th round pick to get him. I don't know if Ivan Pace falls this far. He's so good. He's just small, and in these simulations, they like to let him fall. And I'm not letting him go. I'm not going to ignore a linebacker in this draft. And I take one. All right, we have one more 5th round pick left. That's pick 165. In the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select wide receiver Dontayvion Wicks out of Virginia. Another big body. 2 wide receivers now in this draft. A.T. Perry, Dontayvion Wicks, who in my opinion, he just looks like Marcus Colston to me. You get a guy like that in the 5th round and he works out, a home run. I'm excited about this. We've got 3 picks left. I've got to get offensive linemen now. I have to. Everything else has been taken except a DB. I hope those free agents work out because with pick 195 in the 6th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select offensive guard Juice Scruggs from Penn State. I think Scruggs might be able to learn a little center and he can play some guard. I want to get some bodies in the middle. I want to give some competition to Throckmorton and to Lewis Kidd. Both of those guys were undrafted. Well, we get Scruggs in the 6th round. Let's see if a drafted guy can beat out one of those undrafted guys for a backup spot. And then I doubled down with pick 227 in the 7th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The Saints select offensive guard Anthony Bradford from LSU. Too much talent. This guy shouldn't be on the board in the 7th round. There may be some off-the-field issues, but between Bradford and Scruggs, I think Calvin Throckmorton and Lewis Kidd are going to have to bring a lunch to work because now you've got 2 offensive guards to compete against. And with the last pick of this 12-pick haul for our Bless You Boys, with pick 257 in the 7th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select defensive back Jay Ward out of LSU. I wrap this draft up with 2 picks from the Bayou Bengals. Jay Ward's on the light side. I think he can bulk up a little bit, and he may be a consideration for safety and nickel corner. It's something that the Saints are probably going to focus on in this draft, way higher than this. But that's it. That is my haul. 1 trade with Denver. I yield 12 picks. I don't try to trade up at any point. I go ahead and make all 12 selections, and there they are. I'm not going to break all of them down in detail like I did in my last video. Just to say that We want a running back. We want a tight end. We want a wide receiver. We got them. We need depth at the offensive line and defensive line. I did that, especially with the defensive line, which needs the most talent, and that's where I went early and often. I didn't neglect linebacker this time. And I doubled down at wide receiver. I really want a couple of guys under contract that are young at wide receiver, a couple of guys that are in the mix. Now, Kawan Baker's still on our team, and he was a draft pick. I think he might have been a 5th or 6th round pick. And every time Kawan Baker plays in preseason, he looks good to me. We'll see what Kawan can do. And, we still have Traquan with 1 year left, and we just signed Bryan Edwards to 1 year. Those guys have size. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at A.T. Perry and Dontavian Wicks competing with Traquan and Bryan Edwards. It'd be nice if Bryan Edwards turns into a great player, a guy that could start for us a couple of times, a guy who can play outside and inside, be our number 4 guy. That would be great. Traquan can come in on running downs or whatever, and, eventually we'll let Traquan go. But, if Bryan Edwards was a really good player, we're going to find out in this system with this quarterback. And A.T. Perry and Dontavian Wicks, they can have 4 years to work it out and compete. I like that. I like doubling down on wide receiver. I like getting a couple of bodies on the offensive line. If we get a tackle, someone like Steen out of Alabama who can play tackle or can also kick inside. That was the deal with Jermon Bushrod. Everybody said he can't play tackle in the league. He's going to have to play guard. And we drafted him and we kept him at tackle, and he ended up having to start the Super Bowl, and we ended up winning. So, I think defensive linemen that can kick inside is a good idea. I also think getting mass in the middle is not a bad idea. You want pass rush in the middle, but you can also kick a bunch of our defensive ends inside on passing downs. And so Elijah Cansey being the number 1 pick, it doesn't have to be that way. It could be Mazi Smith. In this particular draft, Mazi wasn't available. He was actually drafted first. And that's the way this worked out. I hope you guys agree with what I did. I hope you like this one. This is probably my favorite draft that I've done. But like I say, it's entirely unrealistic. The Saints won't draft 12 players. I'm going to show you another scenario. We're not going to go detailed like we did with the last one, but another scenario, trade option that I did, which yielded me a ton of picks, was moving back out of the first round completely with the pick 29. So when the Saints had our original 8 picks, Houston wanted to move up from pick 33 in the second round to our pick 29. And they were willing to give up a 3rd round pick and that pick is 65 overall. We have 71 overall. And if I offer them my 3rd round pick 71 overall as well, meaning that, Texans move up 4 picks from the second round to the first round. They're going to move back 6 picks in the 3rd round. And I'm also picking up a 4th round pick from them. And they've got a ton of 6th round picks, and I take 3 of them. This is how the trade works out. We trade back 4 picks. They get to move into the first round. So they're willing to move back 6 spots in the 3rd round. And for all that movement, I'm getting a 4th round pick, and I'm getting 3 6th round picks, which isn't expensive for draft pick value, but it's a lot of bodies, and that's what I'm looking for. So the haul ends up looking like this for the Saints with 12 picks again, and once again, the ability to move around. You're almost out of the first round with pick 29 anyway. So just move back into the second round, get out of the first round altogether. You end up with 2 second round picks, 2 4th round picks, 2 5th round picks, 3 6th round picks, and our 7s. So you still have your 3rd round pick there. So That's a massive haul for the Saints, and you could move around with that. I ended up doing this draft and staying right where I was at, where these picks are listed. And this is how the haul turned out with Brian Breesy, Keon White in the second round. Defensive lineman. Third round pick, a shock. Trenton Simpson still there, and I go ahead and take him. And, you know, this is one of the scenarios where if you don't take Tyjae Spears, what can you do? You know, you can get a linebacker, a good linebacker early that's going to play a lot for this team in Trenton Simpson. I don't know how Ivan Pace works out, you know, in my other draft, but Trenton Simpson stays on this team and plays. He's too versatile. He can play any linebacker spot. He can play a slot spot, a safety spot. You know, Trenton Simpson's a guy that'll stick. The fourth round picks, I end up taking Tyler Steen out of Alabama because he's the best offensive lineman on the board at that point. I'm still looking at guard, and I think he can transition well. I get the big Xavier Hutchinson wide receiver out of Iowa State with that second, fourth round pick. And then in the fifth round, I'm able to get running back Kendre Miller, who probably won't fall into the fifth round, but he did in this mock. And once I draft him, I feel much better about not taking Tyjae Spears and feel really good about the Simpson pick. The second fifth round pick, I grabbed Jacorian Bennett out of Maryland, cornerback. I think he's a guy that fits on our team, and I think the Saints actually really like him. And then with those last five picks, they're glorified rookie free agents, but you can hit a lot of positions that you haven't touched on before. I love Viliami Fehoko. I love him from San Jose State. I love drafting him late. I think that he's just the mold of player the Saints love, and he seems to be in the fifth round every time. I get him in the sixth round here. And then I grab the guard, Anthony Bradford from LSU. I grab a tight end, Brenton Strange from Penn State. I was, you know, I want a body there. I don't know how that's going to work out. I think Brenton Strange has a good balance and he can compete for the third spot. One of my favorite players, Bryce Ford Wheaton. I just don't see how he's going to make it to the seventh round, which he does in every mock that I've done. He's such a good player, and I'm tempted to grab him in the seventh round every time because he's always there. And I grab Ford Wheaton to match with Xavier Hutchinson. And with the last pick, McClendon Curtis out of Chattanooga, offensive guard. So I end up getting Tyler Steen, Anthony Bradford, and McClendon Curtis in this draft. And I still grab three defensive linemen. Two wide receivers. We get the running back. We get the tight end. And we get the DB a lot earlier with Jacorian Bennett. So that's a pretty good mock there, too. Like I said, I love having extra picks. I figure most of your draft picks aren't going to work out anyway. It's like a lot of pundits say, you know, if you can just get two or three really good ones in your draft, you're good. And if the Saints trade everything away and only draft 3 or 4 or 5 players, but they all stick, it's a great draft. Well, you know, they don't all stick. Last year, I think we had 5 picks total. One of them's playing for Sean Payton now. One of them was hurt all year. One of them was hurt all year. That was a high draft pick, and we don't really know what we got from him. So you win some, you lose some, huh? I'm going to pull up one more mock. This is me staying still, picking every pick right where they are allocated. And this is the how that my favorite 8-pick, 7-round draft came out. Getting Kalijah Kancey at defensive tackle with the first-round pick. Grabbing Drew Sanders at linebacker with the second-round pick. In the third round, going with Sam Laporta, tight end. Taking a chance, missing on Spears. And in the 4th round, grabbing the edge rusher, Isaiah McGuire. In the 5th round, Kendre Miller saves the day at running back. And a surprise 5th round pick, the offensive guard out of Alabama, Emil Ikior Jr. is there. And, grabbing him right there feels pretty good. And in my 2 7th round picks, I grab another body at defensive tackle with Jalen Redmond from Oklahoma. And I get a wide receiver in the end anyway with Dante Demas Jr., the guy with size and speed from the College of Maryland. That's my favorite basic draft that I've done. It's crazy to grab a linebacker that early, but, you're taking a chance. Linebacker's one of those positions where the pickings are slim. You got to pick and choose where you grab that position in this draft. Of course, in this mock, once again, no DB is drafted because you just don't have enough picks. I doubled down on defensive tackle. It's something you hope the Saints do. We need an end, we need a tackle, but we really need 2 tackles. You want to get a wide receiver, a young one, to put under contract. You want to make sure you don't miss with the running back. A lot of tight ends to choose from. Great to grab one of them in this draft. But you need a linebacker, You need offensive line help. So it's hard to get all the positions filled with just 8 picks. 8 picks would be a great haul for the actual Saints. And if you guys subscribe to Rosenfield 10, I will be releasing another video tonight. My final prediction on what I think the Saints are actually going to do and who I think the Saints are targeting. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Joe. Please subscribe to Rosenfield 10. I will cover every draft pick the Saints make this weekend. And then we're going to break down the rosters and everything else. I love our Bless You boys. I'm going to keep talking about them. And until the next video, have fun watching the draft. And who dat?